And you might be asking yourself, well, what kind of medical professional who's been a pharmacist since 1997 would all of a sudden just start doing this? Well, let me tell you more about Mr. Stephen Brandenburg from Grafton, Wisconsin. He is a devout flat earther, and this is my favorite. He believes that the sky is a government shield to prevent people from seeing God. I love that. I would love to have him sitting across from me on a couch right now so I can ask, I wouldn't say anything. I just ask him the question, and I want him to just fucking roll for 20 minutes and tell me about what is the origin of that? Like, at what point, I guess before recorded history, or there was some sort of isolated incident where the government and only the government realized that the normal sky, not the sky that has the government shield on it right now, of course, but members of the government or some sort of secret subsect of the government realized that if you just looked up at the sky, you could see God, and presumably just, one God, the right God, whatever God he thinks is, he might be Christian. He's definitely fucking crazy. But in his mind, the government somehow identified like, oh, well, everyday humans can just like look up in the sky and see the grand creator. So we need to build a shield to give the illusion, like the Truman Show. And we're basically all inside of a bubble and it's blocking us from seeing God. And I'm just thinking about this in real time. That also implies that God, this omnipotent creator of the universe, has been thwarted by the United States government, or who knows, maybe it's a global government, maybe it's the deep state, but that God is not able to penetrate this shield. Good job, government. Government 1, God 0, shield worked. And I just can't believe being any kind of functional member of society and truly believing in your heart of hearts that every day that you walk outside, you're underneath a sky that's a huge lie. And every single person you're walking around, you're the only one who knows, you and some select group of neckbeards living in their mom's basement, that you know for sure that the sky is a shield that's protecting all of us from seeing God, and God can't get through it. How can you just live your normal life, let alone be a medical professional in a field that is so deeply rooted in science and precision and peer review and authenticity and retesting and how that causes so much cognitive dissonance for me. Unless this guy had some sort of like severe head injury that was not reported in the last couple of years, and he switched from being a perfectly normal, decent, respectable pharmacist for 20 years, and then during the last 4 years just decided to be this fucking nightmare. So he spoils 570 doses of the vaccine. Oh, he brings a gun to work because, quote, it's in case the military comes to take me away. Again, really breaking that down. Why? Oh, God. If you were actually of the mindset that I need to be armed as I go into this medical facility, because there's even a possibility that, and I'm using air quotes, the government is going to come take me away, how can you even function enough to like go to work? How can you juggle those two things? Like, well, I still need to focus on my 9-to-5 job and save it for my retirement and pay my water bill and make sure I catch the new fucking Grey's Anatomy on Thursday night. But also I need to be armed just in case shit goes down. I can fucking drop down on the government. So they don't take me away, as if, and this transitions into the next part of like how this is so crazy. In your mind, you have a gun that at most has, 16 bullets in it. And what happens in this scenario? Let's say you're totally right and that you are actually a target of the government, and then they come to take you away. So now everything's come to fruition. You're inside the pharmacy. The government shows up, presumably more than just like one guy, like Mr. Smith from The Matrix. And presumably those people have guns, and presumably they came from an office with even more people. And then the office is part of a network, like an entire government that's full of even more people. And they have fucking machine guns and explosives and SWAT teams. And like, what do you think? Best case scenario, government comes to get you because of who the fuck knows. You have a gun, you shoot like 3 agents, and the end, you thwarted the government, and you go to the pharmacy the next day and continue poisoning people. Like, the idea of rationalizing what a crazy person thinks is a foolish endeavor, but it's still worth trying to think of. I know that I'm being an asshole and mocking this guy, but part of even attempting to be empathetic to someone who is, I think, clearly mentally ill is try to understand, where does that thought even begin to grow in someone's mind? And again, a member of the medical community, I think it's a fair assumption that members of the medical and scientific community rely on objective fact and truth and verifiable evidence and things like that. And, you know, obviously a lot of people, we've seen it in the last couple of years, last 4 years, are prone to be influenced by bullshit like QAnon and talk radio and shit like that on either side, but on the fringe, on the extreme level, people can be influenced that way. But like just members of the medical community, I just have a hard time understanding and accepting that. So dude is a flat earther, believes that the sky is a shield to protect us from seeing God, prevent us, from seeing God, because the government does that. Brings a gun to work in case the government comes to take him away. Purposely ruins almost 600 doses of the vaccine, which personally fucking pisses me off. I mean, that's 570 doses that could have gone to highly vulnerable people like my aunt who died in November last year of COVID. And it's just fucking infuriating that this is this guy's one-man army approach of stopping the, people's birth control from being turned off. And that means that there was 570 doses worth of that couldn't be administered, that normally would have been administered. And then people can die in that time period. That's just how this shit works. My aunt went from diagnosed, like tested positive to COVID, to being told she needs to be put on a respirator in 3 days and then passed the next day. If you were scheduled to be vaccinated a week before then, it's very infuriating for me to even go down that fucking rabbit hole and think about what horrible things that this guy deserves. And we're going to get to what he deserves. But so a coworker reported him based on really well-founded suspicions, like the fact that he was talking about his conspiracies about the government, the fact that he was bringing a gun to work, the fact that he has been telling people even before this pharmacy had the vaccine that he thinks it's bullshit at best and dangerous at worst, and that he had intentions to like address the issue. So there was a time period where it became clear that he was reported, but before he got arrested, and he basically figured out who the coworker was that reported him. And according to her, until he got arrested, he gave her a daily harassment of guilt trip, saying if he lost his job, that he would lose his kids because he was in the middle of a contentious divorce. I'd feel terrible for that woman. And that would be her fault. How fucked in the head do you need to be to believe all of those things, continue to bring a gun to work, have done something so medically negligent? And obviously, even if you believe those things to be true in terms of what the vaccine is, you still have to know that that's not acceptable behavior for a medical professional, and not some sort of sustainable behavior if you want to keep your job, let alone keep your fucking license, let alone keep your fucking freedom as a citizen who is like not committing crimes that could kill people. That you do all of those things, and then somehow you're able to look at your coworker and be like, hey, if I lose my job, this is on you. Fuck you. Fuck you, Stephen Brandenburg. Yeah. So he got arrested. He initially pled. He said he didn't do it. Then he said it was an accident, which that almost pisses me off the most, where it's like, you in your heart of hearts believe all these things, at least have the fucking courage and just like emotional fortitude to, if you truly believe that this was poison and that you're doing the right thing, fucking own it, Stephen.